Okay, we're live. So thanks everyone for being here. Before we start the panel on purpose and finding purpose, we're gonna start with a short meditation to all be here in presence. So Nikki, I let you take over.
Okay, thank you so much. So let's just start by arriving here together. And this meditation is really short, and it's just so we can connect with each other and so you can connect with your body, with your intuition, let go of what might have been taking your energy so far today, or maybe keeping your mind busy so far today. So I invite you to arrive here in this moment with the knowledge that there is nowhere else you're meant to be and nothing else you're meant to be doing. Please make sure you're sitting comfortably and take a beautiful breath in through your nose and then release out through your mouth. Take another deep breath in and then breathe out, letting go of any thoughts in your head. Keep breathing this way for a few more breaths, feeling your body rise with your breath in. And then as you exhale, imagine your thoughts and any tension flowing out of your body. Rising and releasing. Now switch to a calmer, softer inhaling and exhaling through your nose as feels naturally good to you at the moment. And enjoy the cleansing nature of your breath. And just allow your air as you breathe in to go down to the place where you feel intuition in your body. And breathe out again from there. Allow that breath to go in down to your place of intuition. It might be in your gut or in your heart or somewhere else in your body. And then breathe out again. And now as you continue to breathe naturally, feel the sun on your skin, on that place of intuition, warming you with a soft glow. And then spreading out all over and around your body, down to your toes, up to your head, and to your face. And relax into a feeling of knowing that you have all the answers you need within yourself. May you be happy and fulfilled. May you surrender to your path, and may you be full of love. Let's take a deep, beautiful breath in again through your nose. And as you exhale through your mouth, feel a smile come over your face. If you close your eyes, you can slowly open them now and thank yourself for taking this time. It was my honor to guide you all.
Thanks, Nikki. Wow. I'm so happy this is the way we started. So, to those of you joining us live or watching this later as a recording, thank you for being here. Thanks to you awesome coaches for being here as well. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you about purpose. For those of you watching who don't know me, I'm Catherine. I'm the founder of The Ascend. And The Ascend is basically my purpose embodied in a business. What we do is help people find the right support to be happy and live and lead in alignment with who they are and who they want to be. And we do that by matching people to the right coaches or the right coach for their needs, including you three who are here today. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about purpose, which is a big part of what we all do and I don't want to say believe in, but yes. So we'll be talking about what purpose is, why purpose is important, is it important, and loads of other things will flow out of this conversation. So to kick things off, I will let each of you to introduce yourself so that people watching know who they're listening to. So Kelby, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelby Kupersmid. I'm an executive coach and leadership development facilitator, born and raised in Southern California, and now digital nomading around the world, and currently in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And my life purpose is self-actualization for social impact, helping people realize their full potential in service to life on Earth. And it's such a privilege to be able to share that with you all here today.
Thanks, Kelby. Nikki?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Well, what I do now, I can tell you in context of my purpose journey, which was messy. I worked in fashion for more than 10 years. I was consulting lots of global big brands like Mulberry and Dior and H&M, flying around the world, staying in 5-star hotels. And I thought, this is success. But really deep down, I didn't feel that I was at all aligned with my values. And that was quite a hard thing to realize, because I think the success I had been taught from a very young age was so deeply rooted within my belief system, but it wasn't mine. It was kind of someone else's idea of success that I was living to. And so it really took me tearing away my identity, my sense of self identity, to be able to unpick that. And it was a journey that I'm sure will be familiar to many of you, encompassing all sorts of things from plant medicines to meditation to just traveling, becoming nomadic like Kelby, doing various different things, getting into Pilates, getting back into my body, but also training as a transformational life coach. And that's how I felt that I could really align my work with my values, leave my old business behind that was successful in the kind of old paradigm definition of success, and find what is the new success. And I started coaching mainly women, but lots of different entrepreneurs and visionary founders who want to make a positive impact on the world with their work. That's what I want to do with my work, and that's where I'm aligned with them. And I really start with values and making sure that we have a good values match. And then after some time coaching these incredible people, I realized, of course, they all need the brand and business expertise that I gained in my years in fashion. So I brought all of that together. And that's how I founded my company, Conscious Accelerator. And so I help founders and CEOs and brands with mindsets, brand strategy, and business strategy all in one, and help them to really succeed. And going on from how Kelby beautifully shared his purpose, mine is to help visionary people to transform themselves and transform the world, and really to move away from this sense of you can either do what you love and be poor, or do what you hate and be rich, and to find a new paradigm for us to succeed in business. But we'll get into that. So I will gracefully hand over now. Thank you, Catherine, for having me.
Thanks a lot, Nikki.
I love your paradigm there, Nikki. And a lot of what you say really resonates with my journey. I'm Lyn Ray. I'm based in Edinburgh. I am no longer nomadic. I am here being a mum and a coach at the same time. I started my career in sales and new product development in the chilled food industry, worked with most of the large UK food retailers. A lot of my work was with Marks and Spencer. Then when I had my son, I couldn't balance how I could be the mum I wanted to be with doing a career that I loved, but that was impacting on me massively in terms of the stress I was under, the travel I was doing. And so my husband and I set up our own business. We did that for 13 years. And that worked brilliantly for us as a family. But for me personally, I was increasingly frustrated. Started making some changes in my life, started meditating, doing yoga, and reading a diverse range of personal development literature. And eventually I also retrained as a transformational life coach, and now incorporate, I suppose, a combination of neuroscience, behavioral science, and coaching in the work that I do with clients. And I work principally with people who are driven, but who are looking to find greater happiness, fulfillment, and more positive energy in their life. And so I guess my purpose is to be the best version I can be of me, be a great role model to my kids, and also to help people be the best version they can be of themselves. And I do believe that happiness is, if you can live in a happy way, if your energy is good, you're going to live a great life.
Awesome. I'm so happy to have the three of you here today. So maybe we kick things off with a question that is a little broad, but does everybody have a purpose? Why is it important, or is it important to have one? And is it important to work in alignment with your purpose? So you can pick what you feel drawn to start talking about first, but why is purpose important?
I'll jump in first. Yeah, I think, I want to start by recognizing that it can be scary to think about life purpose, and it can feel kind of overwhelming. I know I've definitely struggled with that before, and I hear that from people that I share this with. And so it's kind of tempting to ignore the question of what is my life purpose, not look directly at it, kind of keep it in the periphery. But the key thing is that you can't actually avoid it by not asking it, because how you live each moment answers the question, what is my life purpose? And since we're constantly answering the question, I believe that it's an urgent question and an extremely significant one. I think sometimes it can be kind of a whisper or an intuition or a calling. And if we don't heed that calling, we can still survive, we can still do well, but I think there's so much more possibility to really thrive if we can tune into our calling. I think that's what we're here for.
I totally agree, Kelby, and I think that whilst clients do find it quite overwhelming, I think the irony is that actually when you get clear on your purpose, you really simplify your life, because it makes decision making really easy, because if you know what it is that you want and you know what you want to achieve, albeit that achieve can be a scary word as well, it means that your choices are easy. You make decisions aligned with your values, you make decisions that are going to move you towards the life that you want. And essentially, our life is just an accumulation of all the days we live. So making good decisions on a daily basis helps us get to where we want to be.
Absolutely. I would just add to that. I totally agree with you both. And I think that it's really about the journey. So I think we can often think of purpose as this one diamond that we have to uncover. And once we found it, then we've got it for life. And that's not really the reality. It's more that we discover a purpose for ourselves as we go, as we move. And that purpose needs to be able to have the flexibility and freedom to evolve. Absolutely, as Lyn said, it brings so much more simplicity. And Kelby also touched on this about the kind of the journey and the continuation of purpose and asking that question over time. And I think that's really important, because we can also put so much pressure on ourselves to find this one thing, but actually it's more about what is your purpose today. And that comes from your values and from how you want to live and what you want to impact the world with today. And then to allow that to grow and change over time as well. That's totally fine. We're all evolving. And as we get more experience, then things can become sharper or they can slightly change direction. So to release some of that pressure that this is your one thing for life, but more to understand what's my one thing now, what's my one thing today, and how can I live that in the best way that I can, so that I can A, have a much more fulfilling life, but B, be in flow with my gifts and my zone of genius and the things I love, and really deliver something that the world needs. And I truly believe that the future of business is driven by purpose, because this is how we can be most valuable. So we have a better life because we're fulfilled and happy and find meaning, and we can impact other people in the world better as well, because we're doing something, again, that has meaning. So I think it's a win-win, and the way we need to define success needs to change. And purpose is there for us to take with us on that journey.
So if I think we all love what we're doing and have this sense of purpose in what we're doing. But what about someone who is working a job that's, I don't know if it's the old paradigm, but successful, quote unquote, good title, good company, good salary, but they're not feeling fulfilled. And like the question of what is my purpose and how can I align with it is quite overwhelming, as we know it can be. How do you go about figuring out what your purpose is if you don't have this strong calling of, this is how I want to help the world, or this is what energizes me? How can people go about finding their purpose?
For me, I generally would ask clients, what is it that really interests you? Really start with the things that you like to spend your time doing, and not, don't make it too intense. Just go with that. And, if somebody's looking to move from a corporate job, they've obviously got financial responsibilities. And, I get it's not easy for everybody just to go, shit, I'll throw my life up in the air. But if people understand what interests them, start exploring that. So if it maybe is a career change, and I don't know, somebody maybe wants to be a florist, for example, maybe they start off by doing a weekend workshop, or maybe they go and they do a night class and they explore that. And sometimes you'll go down the route and you go, yeah, this is great. And that evolves into, retraining, and sometimes you get down the path and you go, well, actually, this isn't what I thought it would be. So for example, in my personal experience, I loved interior design. For years, was obsessed by, the environment they lived in, the impact it had on us. And then I started doing an interior design diploma, got a few months in, loved the course. It was fantastic, but I couldn't get my head around how I would manage the clients. And I couldn't get uptight if somebody's lamp was a week late. That just would not actually, I couldn't give a shit about the lamp being a week late. So I started to reevaluate. And, at the end of the day, I drew a line. I was like, no, this is not what I thought it would be. Draw the line. And then you follow the next thing. And it's almost like, that kids analogy where you leave like the crumbs and follow the breadcrumbs. And see where it evolves. Don't hold it lightly. That's what my coach used to always say, hold it lightly and follow the path and just see where it goes. And that to me is so exciting because like Nikki said earlier, it's the journey. It's not going to be a straight path. There'll probably be bumps in the road and there might be a diversion, but just follow it.
Absolutely agree with you. And I would say, I was really interested when Catherine asked that question to actually hear how Kelby and Lyn answer it, because I think everybody has their own unique approach to helping people find purpose. There are so many different paths that we can take there. So I was really intrigued to hear, and I look forward to hearing what Kelby adds as well. The way that I approach it with my clients is that we start with values. And the way I see it is that our values really sit underneath purpose, and values are these blocks that don't really change over your lifetime. They can evolve a bit, or they can slightly change in order of what's the most important to you. But values are much more stable. And then your purpose is something that's kind of going to change, because it will change in how you express it, certainly, as you go through different phases. So I start with values and really going into that with my clients. I think it's always such a useful exercise. I do it myself every year for myself, because I always feel I know them and they don't really change, but it just gives me a new framing. And I think that's a really important way that we can then start to look at our lives. And I think, Catherine, you mentioned, well, what if you've got this big corporate job and the for this big company and this big salary? That might be your purpose, and it might not be. That's not the point. Isn't how other people might judge it, what other people might see about what you do. It's how does it align for you with your values, with what you really want to do, with what really matters to you. And so that's always my starting point.
Yeah, spot on. What I'd add to what both of you shared, picking up, Lyn, on what you said of having it be light or something along those lines, I would say, since it can be stressful and we can feel a lot of pressure, I believe it's really important to bring an element of play to it, bring an element of exploration and discovery, rather than this being like a stressful thing, like, oh no, I have to figure out my purpose. Like, see if you can find joy in discovering your purpose. Both what Nikki and Lyn shared about trying different things, and really that can be a fun and rewarding process. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I would say is it might be helpful for us to define purpose. Like,
I think that's
what is purpose? So I'll start, and then if you all have something to add. I talk about purpose as being our unique contribution to life. So something that gives life meaning for you, and something that you do in service of others.
Mm. Nikki, what's your definition of purpose?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I was thinking about this morning as well, about how do I define purpose actually. And I think for me, it is your driving reason for being that gives you and your life meaning.
I would agree with both of these. I hate being put on the spot about definitions. It's like my brain. Purpose for me, I would define it as being the thing that you add value with, and the thing that brings you, I suppose, it raises your self-esteem. It's the point Kelby made. It's that in service, what you can add to other people's lives, how you can help other people. Yeah.
I guess ultimately how you help other people is how you help yourself.
I don't want to judge that, because that might not be somebody else's purpose. So it's so personal.
Yeah.
You know, other people, it might not be that they want to help other people. It might be that they want to, I don't know, be creative, or that they want to, I don't know, put somebody in space. I don't know.
The way I see it is that I do believe that all humans are inherently good, and that underpins my perspective on purpose, because I did mention in my definition what it does for others, because I believe that when we're aligned with our true values and finding meaning in our lives, it absolutely is in alignment with what's best for the growth of humanity, for the overall consciousness, for the health of the planet and regenerating the planet. And so, like you say, Lyn, for someone it can be to be a painter, for someone it can be to build boats, for it can be all different things, but they all, if they're aligned with your values, they come from an authentic place, which I believe then connects to the kind of greater goodness, which might even be beyond what we might be able to see, because I might perceive positive impact on people and planet in a different way to someone else. But I think that's why I also take it back to values, because I think that's where we can get that the goodness of the human, and bring that out into the world.
And I think that's the great thing about purpose, is that I believe we were all put here for a reason. We all, as humans, add something completely unique and different to the world. And if people are able to work and live in a way that is aligned to their values, in a way that they enjoy, that they're happy, it's like when you throw a stone in a pond and it ripples out. It's like all these positive ripples. But if everybody is living in a way like that, it's just all this positivity and good use of people's energy, good use of people's skills, good use of people's time. And exactly like Nikki says, that's for the common good. Whereas if people are living in a way where they're frustrated, they're stressed, they're anxious, they're not living in that way, then that doesn't have a positive impact on them, on their families, on the wider community.
Do you think it's important to have your work be aligned to your purpose, or not necessarily?
Personally, I believe that when you look at how many hours we spend at work, I think that if your work is not aligned, it does cause issues, often with stress, often with frustration. There's probably cases where it doesn't have to be, because there's always anomalies, but I would say in general, yes, for your mental and physical health, having your work aligned to your purpose and your values, I think is important.
Yeah, I generally think about our work as being our expression of our purpose, and the things we do in life as being an expression of our passions. I mean, I'm very passionate about my work, and you know, I think many coaches are as well. But I'm also very passionate about music, and I spend a lot of my time outside of work making music, listening to music, going to shows, etc. And but that's not my purpose, right? So I think the distinction for me is really about something that is in service for others, that is uniquely just the alignment of values, strengths, and kind of the uniqueness of each of our own individual personalities or souls, however you like to think about that.
I love this question. I think it's such a good question because I think there's not a simple answer. And I love what we've heard. And it reminds me, I interviewed the author of The Purpose Myth, the book, on my podcast, Going Conscious. And she was talking about how actually you don't need to have your purpose aligned with work. She's not here to be part of the conversation, so I shouldn't bring her words into it. But she writes really interestingly from the other side, saying actually, you know, you can create purpose around your work. The way I see it is I completely agree with Lyn and Kelby that, you know, you spend so much time working, and your work really needs to be an expression of your purpose. I think that's how you feel fulfilled. And I also think that's how you'll be most successful in a holistic definition of success, you know, finding freedom, fulfillment, positive impact, and financial returns. Because that's when you're really in your flow. But also, I think that it's purpose can be something that spans different areas. So Lyn, you mentioned being a mother. So for me, as quite a recent mother, I've also kind of re-looked my purpose in the context of a mother as well, and seen that actually the contribution that I'm making to the world is to try to make an impact for her, for my daughter, and to see actually the way that I mother has a lot of similarities with the way that I want to work. And so I think our purpose is so fundamental to us that it can be expressed in different ways. And there can be different elements of it that you can kind of dial up and dial down. But then, you know, there are other parts of you that you might express in different ways as well. Yeah. And, you know, what Kelby said about music and hobbies, and I love creating pottery and painting, and how does that fit in? But then I feel like that's also part of kind of enriching us as humans, and living the human experience and enjoying what that is. You know, and then kind of what do you actually put your energy behind putting out in the world to impact other people? That might be more like the funnel for your purpose.
Totally. I want to add something to my answer, and I think to the conversation, that, you know, from my point of view, there's absolutely nothing wrong with just having a job to pay the bills and get by, right? I think there's something very privileged about being able to do what you love for work. And so, you know, I just kind of want to acknowledge the fact that for many people, work is a means to survive. And also thinking about, even if that is our situation, or even if, you know, our work we don't feel like is our true purpose, thinking about how can we imbue whatever it is that we do with purpose, giving it meaning. Right. My perspective is that there is no inherent meaning in life, that it is, you know, we're meaning-making organisms. And so we can really create the meaning that we want to, that is, that gives our life meaning into whatever it is that we do. Right. There's, I was on vacation in Belize, and I saw this man raking the sand, raking the beach. Long stretch of beach, so much sand, he's walking up and down with a rake. And I was looking at this man, and I'm imagining, this is a story I'm telling myself in the head, what a miserable job. Like, there's so much sand he's raking. What's it even doing? Who's paying this man to rake the beach, right? And he gets closer to me, and I start talking with him. I ask him about his job, what I remember him vividly saying is that he loves what he does, and he said cleanliness is next to godliness. So for him, this act of raking the beach is literally an act of spirituality, an act of God. And here I am, just complaining for him about how miserable it must be, right? And so I think that just really stuck with me, and I think it's such a beautiful message that we can create really positive. We can empower whatever it is that we do with purpose.
Yeah, and I think, Nikki, you brought this up as well when you were introducing yourself. Where like we're all different, everybody. So we all have a different understanding of like what's the purpose of life in a bigger sense, or some people think about it, some people don't think about it. I've spent a lot of time thinking about it for myself, just because I like to, but we all have different reasons for being, and whether that differs greatly from one to the next, there's no right or wrong. But Nikki, what you brought up as well is how much of your purpose of, or what you believe is your purpose, is coming from you really, and how much has been taught or has been, what's the word?
Condition.
Yeah.
And how can you separate, for me personally, it was, obviously the journey of finding purpose was, long, but I've done so many different things. I was actually just rereading before this conversation a couple of years ago. I did this like soul blueprint reading, and it's all about, some people think that it's totally whack, but kind of the soul group and like the, kind of Akashic records meaning of my life and these kinds of things. But also read loads of books on a lot more, let's call it, pragmatic way of finding purpose. And we all have a different journey, but how can you separate what you've learned, what you believe is like success or what you believe is worthy, and what you really truly want for yourself? I need to go close the window because there's construction next door.
So I'll say for me, if it's something that's external or conditioned, it feels like pressure. It feels like something I should do, maybe even something I have to do. I tend to notice that I'm worried about what other people will think, right? Whether I do it or not. So those are all indicators for me that it's something that's coming from the external world. So I think those are the questions that I would invite people to feel into. On the other hand, if it's something that's intrinsic, it's something that there's just joy around it, there's excitement, there's a sense of being pulled forward by it, a sense of inspiration, and just really a sense of alignment, like it just feels right, So it's a very different, like visceral, embodied experience.
I agree with what Kelby said. I love watching the word should. I think that is such a great tool, because I do think, in terms of the conditioning that we've all grown up being conditioned to certain things, our cultures, our families, all of that. I think watching the word should, and that's really is a good tip as well, I think, to people who are watching, to question when we use the word should. What does that mean? For me, I think what's good or what I found helpful when I was looking to separate out external pressures versus my own, was looking at different points in my life and then looking at when I was at my very best. So moments in time where I really felt like I was what I would call cooking with gas, but really firing on all cylinders. What was it about those moments in time that I felt like I was able to be the best version of me? And then really exploring, what it was about that moment or these moments across my life that made them feel satisfying to me. And I think a good tip is using writing. Like journaling is massively helpful to people. And there's a massive amount of science being done into how writing helps us process our thoughts and our emotions. And in my journey, I used a lot of writing, and it was really interesting. Some of the stuff that I uncovered was not even things that I would have really rationally thought about. But I started piecing together this jigsaw and understanding, what linked these different events and why I felt I was, really I suppose in the flow, Nikki was the term that I think you used. But, you know, why was it in these moments in time I felt like I was in my flow? And so certainly, you know, asking these questions, you know, when have you really felt at your best? What was it about these moments that really for you, you know, were satisfying and you felt like you added value? That's helpful. I found it helpful anyway.
Love that. Love hearing about your experience. And I noticed how both you, Kelby and Lyn, use the word feel so much. And I think that's so key as well. It's not really about thinking. You know, it's not up in the brain and all of the busyness. That's where all the shoulds are. It's in the body. And I think going into the body is really, really important. Our bodies give us so many signs. Something can just feel draining, or you can, you know, when I was a director of a fashion company and starting to realize it wasn't right for me, I remember just writing a simple email. It seemed really exhausting. And that was a wake-up call for me. Why does this not feel right in my body? And I couldn't answer it immediately. And then my brain said, oh, but you're really successful. You have a great job. And then it kept coming and my body kept showing me. And, you know, ultimately, I think that's what leads to, unfortunately, a lot of burnout and a lot of really stressful situations with health for people when we don't listen to the body. So what does your body tell you? And one tip and tool that I'll share is to ask yourself, is that true 5 times? So, you know, I think success is this. Is that true? And then to answer that and to ask yourself, is that true 5 times? And then you can be surprised. And I love to do that with writing, actually, like Lyn said. I think more can come out like that, and never thinking, what am I writing? Just letting it flow.
That's great. We'll share, by the way, we'll share all the tools and all the things that have been mentioned as well, both in the toolkit and on YouTube, where we'll post this video. And just as a quick parenthesis to anyone watching, if you have any questions, you can comment in the comments and we can answer your questions as well.
I think following on really from something Nikki said there, that I think we live in a very busy world. You know, there are lots of pressures on us all every day, you know, work pressures, family pressures, societal pressures, I guess. But I think one of the key things is it's good to be able to calm your mind. By calming your mind down, that helps with a lot of these bigger questions. So, you know, for some people, meditation is immensely useful. It reduces the size of the amygdala, it increases the size of the prefrontal cortex. So that helps you make more rational decisions. For other people, walking in nature can be a very good tool to help them calm down and to, you know, to give themselves some space. And, you know, that is one of the things that I would really, you know, encourage people to do, is give yourself space. You know, always being busy, always being under pressure, always stress, that makes it difficult to answer some of these questions, because it's hard to answer deep questions when you're constantly on the hamster wheel. So create space in your life.
We're all nodding. Everyone agrees. And it's really about taking that time. I think, you know, weirdly, even though there's so many kind of drawbacks to COVID, but I think, you know, in conversations, so many people were grateful for that time of slowing down and being able to be not going at 1,000 miles an hour, keeping up with, you know, work commitments and social commitments and everything, but just having some time to just be in their space and have time to think about all of that stuff. And, you know, I think a lot of people out of that quit their jobs, and a lot of people have, that's not the only thing, you know, but just having that time to think. And so how can we create this now that, you know, obviously so excited that life is normal or that we don't have all these restrictions anymore, but how can you still create that space in your life to actually take the time to ask yourself those questions and really be present and not just keep on going like automatically on what your life, yeah, in your everyday without trying to improve, I guess. And obviously that's one of the main benefits of coaching, which, you know, is having that time and that space to slow down and have that exchange to be able to first identify what you want and find a way to get there. I have another question. What do you guys think of, I know you all love what you do, but what do you guys think of do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life?
Well, I think I mean, on one hand, I agree with it completely and love it. On the other hand, it means it's much harder for me to stop working because I love what I do. And I think a lot of us experience that. I'm writing a book at the moment. When my 6-month-old daughter goes to sleep at 7 p.m., if I'm lucky, then I'm writing my book. And, you know, so I realized that because I love what I do, even in what maybe should be my time off, I'm then working on something else, on another project. You know, I serve clients in the day and then book writing in the evenings, and it's easy for it to seep into all areas of our lives. I personally try to, and always have had, a really strong kind of work-life balance, though, where I don't work on weekends. I just don't. I work 2 weekends a year. I've always been like that. Even when I've worked in crazy agencies where people work 7-day weeks as the norm, I just know that for me personally, it's really important to have those 2 days at least in a row where I can just unwind, be present with my family, have no digital on Sundays at all, no phones, and just really step back from that world so I'm really fresh the next week. That's what's important to me. But the other thing I wanted to say around that is, there are many different aspects to our job. So for me as a business owner, I get to do things that I absolutely love every day. There are also things sometimes I don't really like that I need to do. And I think that that's also really important to acknowledge, you know, that yes, you might be aligned with your purpose and you might be doing the job and work that you love, but do I like dealing with my accountant to get my taxes sorted out? No, I find it mind-numbingly boring, and I have to really rake up a lot of energy in advance to do it, and it always feels good when it's done. But, you know, I think we all also have those kinds of aspects as well. For that, I think it's really important just to have delegation and to be really clear on what do I love and what is it better I hire someone to help me do.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I think it's a great question and something that I've been thinking about a lot as well lately. And really what it brings up for me is, you know, the statement is, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, what does it mean to work, right? What are the connotations or the associations that we have with what it means to work, right? I mean, for example, is this work right now? I mean, you could say this is about our profession, and sure, it's about advancing our brand, but also we're 4 colleagues having a conversation. So does it feel like to me, I think a lot of times there's the association of work as feeling like something that's hard and that's grueling and that you don't like, which is so sad, you know, and the reality for many people, right? So yeah, Nikki, I agree. There's definitely parts of the job where it feels like work. There's, you know, taxes or maybe running back to back, which I've been doing a lot of lately, and also just really finding joy and passion in what I do. You know, it's interesting you shared the example of writing your book. For many people, that could be their passion project, or like the way that they create their art in the world, and not necessarily something that they view as work. You know, I don't know the details of your book and what it's about and all that, but I just think for me, it really is a question of how we relate to the things that we do. And even if it is work, can we relate to it as playful or enjoyable or meaningful, purposeful, etc. Right?
I love writing my book, and I love having that time, and I would do it if no one would read it and no one would buy a copy. So I think, yeah, you've just also made me think about my definition of work, because for me it needs to be something that I really enjoy, that I would do without necessarily being paid for. And that's how I approach it. That's not right for everyone, but for me, it is doing things that I would do anyway, even if I didn't receive financial returns for them. But what is the definition of work is such a good question to come from that. And I also think that in our society, certainly in the West, there's a lot of a sense of you need to suffer and go through pain to succeed. And I think this is incredibly unhealthy and not true. And this is a way that kind of unhealthy and toxic corporate structures and cultures are able to remain, but hopefully being broken down literally now. And there are new ways of working emerging and new setting of standards that some companies are spearheading and that employees and founders as well are demanding. So I'm really excited to see where that goes, because I think this, you know, you have to suffer to succeed is really dying the death it deserves.
I would agree with that, Nikki. I think that I've certainly been guilty in the past of believing that I had to work hard to deserve it almost. You know, I could only be successful and be deserving of it if I worked hard. But I completely agree. I think we're now at a point where we have to recognize that if we want to make good decisions for our companies, for our society, for the environment, the world as a whole, you know, we need to be in a place to make good decisions. And that involves spending time looking after our bodies, looking after our minds, you know, eating properly, you know, sleeping properly, a whole host of other things that are actually vitally important to be able to perform to our best. I think going back to the question of love what you do and you won't work a day in your life, I do think that if you would do it for free, that's a good sign that you're doing a job that you do love. But I also think, you know, we've got to be pragmatic. Nobody loves their job every day. We have to do bits of our jobs that we don't like. You know, going back to the point that Nikki made about, like, we all hate doing our tax returns, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's a nice problem to have, you know, because you're actually making enough money to be able to need to do a tax return, you know. But I think that for your mental and physical well-being, if you can do a job that you love, it does make it a lot easier.
For sure. And one thing I've been thinking a lot about recently is also, and we spoke about this in the last panel on goal setting, and I think it applies to purpose as well. Or to, you know, knowing how to align your job to your purpose. There's also the question of how much of that stuff that I don't like that's part of my job am I willing to put up with? Or how much of that stuff that I don't like can I do while keeping the balance on the net positive? And, you know, knowing that everything, I think most people, most jobs, you're going to have an aspect that, you know, it's probably not going to be your favorite thing. But as long as you're aware that you're willing to take that chunk of, you know, there's a lot of things, not a lot of things, but there are some things obviously as a founder that are really annoying and it can be stressful. And there's some stuff that I don't love to do, but I know that that's what I chose for myself and that the joy of what I do is much higher than the unfrequent frustrations.
I think also when you have one of those frustrations, you can ask yourself, how could I take the edge off this frustration? Is there anything I could do that could make this slightly better for me? And, you know, I think sometimes we just accept and get stuck in our ways, but there's so often just a tweak you can make. It might not revolutionize it. You might be able to say, wow, it doesn't even cost much to just have someone do that for me who loves doing that. Which, you know, but it might also just be a tweak to how you do it, or a different process you put in place, or something that makes it easier, or not doing it at the last minute so you don't have the added stress, or whatever it is. So kind of constantly just tweaking and finding ways to lower that pile of resistance so you can pull more into what you want to do.
I just pulled out something so basic, but one of the things I don't like doing is paying bills. So I got myself a little stamp. So when I pay my bill, I paid, and it makes it more enjoyable. It's so basic, but it's made it.
I'm going to do that.
Well, yeah.
It's my least favorite thing.
Done. So. it's the small things sometimes.
And it's also something I started doing with the bills one, is to think about the gratitude with it. So instead of just being like, this is so annoying, I think, thank you so much for keeping my house warm. That really means a lot to me. It means a lot to my baby daughter. And oh, it's so nice in the morning when I have a warm shower. Thank you. And then I pay it, and it feels good.
That's so good. I think many people need good tips on how to make admin more enjoyable.
Next workshop on how to make paying your bills fun.
Exactly. We'll just clip.
We'll sign up with our bills and pay them together.
Exactly. We're having a bills paying party.
Yeah, I know. I've got a couple.
Anyone can attend. Lyn, I think I interrupted you. You were going to say something on the back of.
No, all I was going to say was, I think sometimes even it's just reframing things in our own head so that we change the way that we perceive something, can make our resistance to doing certain things slightly less.
Totally agree with you. Like, if you say, I always pay my bills late, I'm rubbish at paying my bills, then you're going to live by that, and it's going to be annoying and stressful every time. But if you say, I am somebody who owns a bill paid stamp and I'm really proactive because I love using my stamp, then you can totally change your behaviors just by one belief that you change in your mindset. So as coaches, I know we all work so much with that, with mindsets and helping people to change the stories that you tell yourself about yourself, because that's where it all starts.
So true, the stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. And fitting into the stories. Is it your story? Is it the story you think you know, not to talk about me too much, but I get caught in that trap sometimes of I don't get caught in, but it's something that I constantly work on, is not getting caught in like the startup hustle that's really against what I want to be building, you know, and I really want to build a sustainable business that's sustainable both in terms of how we serve people, but also how it serves me, and that I stay motivated and I stay passionate about what I'm doing, and it stays on par with my purpose. And then you have all the external pressures of, yeah, I work every weekend, and you know, founders don't take bank holidays, and I'm like, I take bank holidays, I take my weekends, and that's important to me. But it's also, you know, sometimes being able to identify the pressures that are coming from the outside and how to keep those at bay, and also reframe what you think is, what you think you need, what you really need, and staying true to yourself and staying aligned. So I guess that's going back to, you know, taking the time to ask yourself the questions of what you want and what you need, what you're creating, and how you have to live for yourself and be happy. Does anyone have any closing comments? We're soon coming up to the hour.
I think the final thing that I would like to say, though, is about, you know, not to get stuck in a thinking loop where you try and think your way to a purpose. You've got to start taking action. So even if it's just a small step, start taking action, because you learn from that action. You know, you get more clarity from the action. You build your self-confidence as you start taking action. And so it's almost like a cycle where you get more clarity, you take action, action builds your confidence, you get more clarity. And so it's like a positive cycle, but you need to take action. You cannot ever think your way to finding your purpose.
I love that. So, so true. You cannot think your way to finding your purpose. I agree very deeply. And I think the way that I would add to that is just to say that I believe that intuition is your greatest guide. And we are so separated from our intuition in general in our culture. And we are taught to trust information given to us by people of more authority. And yes, there's lots of good in that too. But what about what you believe? And I think we've probably all had those experiences in life where we felt something, but kind of didn't know I should, and done it. And then been like, no, I always knew that wasn't right. Actually, I felt it but why did I do it? And, you know, I think we've all experienced something like that. And so really allow your intuition to guide you and to focus on clearing the smog that between you and your intuition is what will allow what you need to see to just come when it's ready. So like you say, Lyn, you can't think your way to your purpose. And if you try to force it, it's just going to be really frustrating. So just focusing on that inner connection, that inner journey and clarity is, I think, the most important really for our life's work. And for me, that's something that goes right across business, health, parenting, everything that I'm doing.
I think I would just summarize a few key points from what I've shared and what I've heard so far, which is be compassionate with yourself on the journey of discovering your purpose. Have fun with it along the way. Really see it as a discovery and an exploration rather than something that's stressful. And ultimately look for that fire inside is the metaphor that really resonates with me. Just like something that lights you up, that leaves you feeling inspired, and that pulls you forward rather than you having to push it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here, all three of you. I'm so grateful that we get to work together, and I'm so happy our paths crossed. Nikki, thank you so much for that meditation at the beginning. It was magic and such a great way to start. Thanks. Honestly, guys, it means so much to me to be able to work with you guys and with people like you that have, you know, a common kind of purpose of sharing these kinds of messages and enabling other people to live their life on purpose. Thanks to anyone who watched. We have no idea who was there or not, but I think that's it for today, and we hope to see you here for the next panel again.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So we're going offline and broadcast.